Hi everyone, in this video we are going to talk about Amazon Application Load Balancer. Amazon Application Load Balancer is a service provided by AWS that helps us to distribute traffic among different EC2 instances, containers and IP addresses within a virtual private cloud. Amazon Application Load Balancer is designed to provide you high availability and fault tolerance for your application. I'll show you step-by-step guide how you can create a load balancer in AWS. So here I am on my computer screen. At first you have to go to the instances. I've already created two instances that I can load balance it. So in my first instance there is written this is my server 1, and the second instance there is this is my server 2. So here you can go into the load balancer section and you can click on the create a load balancer. There are different types of load balancer you can create. So there is an application load balancer, network load balancer, gateway load balancer, and they are used for different purposes. So we are going to implement an application load balancer in this session. So if you want to distribute the traffic for HTTP types or HTTPS types, you can use application load balancers. And if you have TCP, UDP types, you can use network load balancer. And if you know how to use application load balancer, then it is similar to network load balancers. And for using with third party, you can use gateway load balancer. And we have also a classic load balancer that is of legacy types. We are not going to use in this video. So let's click on the create part of the application load balancer. There is a basic configuration in this part, so I'm going to write my ALB in this name. So this is the internet facing load balancer, and the address type is IPv4. And in the network mapping, I have created my instances in default VPC, so I'm going to choose the default VPC. And for the subnets, my EC2 instances are in US East 2C, so I'll be choosing US East 2C and also US East 2B as the load balancer needs 2 availability zones to have. And for the security group, I'll be creating the security group. As my application needs port 80 HTTP port, to be allowed, I will be creating the security group that allows some port 80. My ALV security group allow HTTP request. As it is the demo application, I'm just allowing the HTTP port. If you have an application that runs on HTTPS, you must allow HTTPS also. So for this, anywhere, and I'll be doing this HTTP. Security group, and then I have successfully created the security group. So I'm going back to my application load balancer, and if I do refresh and choose my ALB, so my ALB security group, I choose this one. So I did not choose the default one. So for the part of listeners and routing, we must have to create a target group. So the target group is the collection of your instances that the load balancer distributes the traffic. So I'm going to create a target group and include the instances which I've created in previously. So let's specify the details for the target groups. So we have the instances, so we choose the instances. If you have Lambda functions, IP addresses, and also application load balancers, then you can specify those as well. So for the target group, I write as my target group, and it is working in HTTP port 80. So I'll not change this one. So the VPC is the default VPC protocol HTTP 1. That's all right. So for the health check, if my instance is running in the root, so I choose it to be slash. If you have any other health check paths, like if you have slash um, like checkout.php, then you can choose to make the path as checkout.php as your health check path. So for now I select this one root. So, and for the advanced health check settings, you can configure these all settings. If you want to override the port, you can choose to override this one. And healthy threshold is the number of times the health check success code is required before considering an unhealthy instance as a healthy instance. And for the unhealthy threshold, it is the number of times the health check fails before considering it as an unhealthy instance. And for the timeout part, it is the number of seconds it will wait before it considers a failed health check. And for the interval, it is the time period before it sends the next health check to the target. For the success code, you can choose to make it as individual success codes like 200 and 202 and other success code for your application, or you can also choose to have it in a range like it is given here for the range of 200 to 299. So for now I choose to make it as 200 for my application, and after that I choose to select next. After doing next, it is the part to register the targets. I have these instances for my target groups. I've already created this server 1 and server 2. So I click include as pending job and then create target group. My target group is created now. So let's go back to the load balancer part and select it as my target group. And then create the load balancer. So okay, I click the view load balancer. It is in provisioning state. So let's wait for some time before it gets available. Okay, now after waiting for some time, my load balancer has come to an active state. It provides you a DNS name, but not the IP addresses. So if I go to this DNS, so okay, after going to my DNS, it shows my server 2. If I do refresh, it shows server 1, server 2, server 1. So our load balancer works perfectly, and it is in the round robin method. So if I go to the load balancer, it shows all the details. And if I go to my target groups, I can see that my target group, it shows healthy. If you have any issues, you can see here your target groups. It shows unhealthy. So these are all the details, you can go through it. Let's look on how we can use our domain to point AWS Application Load Balancer. So for that, we go to the AWS console. Here we click on route 53. You can use route 53 to register your domains. I have already registered one domain for me, and I'll be using that one. So click on your domain and then create record part. You can use CNAME as well as alias record types. But using alias record type is more beneficial because it has no additional lookup. That means no additional DNS lookup is done because alias record directly maps your AWS resources, and it results in faster resolution time. So, and another thing is support for Apex domain. So it means that you can use the root domain also. And the third one is automated updates. So if the IP addresses in your target groups changes due to auto scaling or any other reasons, then alias records changes accordingly. So it ensures the availability of your application always. So let's implement that one. So I'll be using alb dot my domain name, and then record type a record, and then click on this alias button and choose the endpoint. You use alias to application load balancer because our target is application load balancer, so choose this one, and my region is US East 1. So I choose US East 1, and the load balancer is let me quickly check the load balancer. So this one is my load balancer. So I click this one. You can use simple routing method and then click on create records, and then I have successfully created the record. So let's go on to this domain. Yeah, this works fine. So in this way you can use route 53 to point your application load balancer from your domain. Sometimes there can be issue while connecting to your load balancer, like you can have connection timeout issue. So for that we can resolve it by looking into the load balancer section, and always check on that your load balancer is listening to the port which you are trying to connect, and also check on the security part that your security group is enabled for the port you are trying to connect. If your application is listening to port 80, then the security group must be enabled for port 80. And also check that your application load balancer can communicate with the instances that you have configured as a target group. And for that you can also check for the security group, and the inbound for the instances is enabled for your load balancer, and also check for the VPC network ACLs, like all the inbound traffic and the outbound traffic is enabled for your VPC. And also you can check from your local machine from the command line. You can use telnet to check for your application load balancer is connecting or not. This is my domain name for the application load balancer and the port 80 that I am trying to connect. Then if I click on enter, then it must connect like this. These are the things that you can check if you are unable to connect to your application load balancer. And even after checking all these things, if you are not able to connect to your application load balancer, then it can be issue with the load and the other things. You can also check for that. So this was the short video tutorial on how we can create an application load balancer in AWS, and we also looked on to how we can map our custom domain to application load balancer, and also we looked on to the common issues we can face during creation of application load balancer and how we can solve those things. Thank you.
If you enjoyed the video, a thumbs up would be amazing. For more exciting content around cloud and DevOps, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to stay updated in our Cloud Safari series. Thanks for watching.